let's explore a reason why therapy dogs in schools is a bad idea. So here's what we're talking about. All these kids going to school petting up on dogs. Petting, 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 stroking them with their hands. Why is this a problem? What could the problem be here? Well, first off, this is taxpayer funded. Directly or indirectly, these are connected to 501c3. So they can spend a bunch of money on pet meds. They can spend a bunch of money on the dogs. They can take in donations. But they can write that all off. So indirectly, you as the taxpayer are funding this. And shouldn't your money go to like a qualified teacher to give them a raise? Shouldn't your money go to like apprentices in the classroom? Not a bunch of dogs that require expensive medications, expensive handlers? Well, let's do some research today. So first off, children should not consume pet medications. Now this may sound pretty obvious, but I just want to remind everybody of that because that's an important fact. Pet medications are neurodisruptive, antiparasitic medications are neurodisruptive, and it's important that we don't screw around with the brains of our little kids by giving them any of this stuff. As it mentions here, according to Harvard and many other sources, I mean, it's pretty much obvious, but it's crucial for the children's brain to develop without disruption to neurotransmitters. Especially school-age children, that's when they're learning. They're learning how to act in society, they're developing their skills, their empathy, making relationships, all that stuff. A proper balance of neurotransmitters supports healthy emotional and cognitive development. Yeah. So, now petting an animal can transfer medications, especially if the animal has been exposed to blah, 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 blah. Pretty much anything that an animal has consumed can be transferred to you when you pet it, when you rub up on its fur or consume particles of the fur. In fact, if you want to go a little deeper on your own, look up how they do drug tests. They can find it in the hair. They can find out what drugs you've been taking by looking at your hair because there's always leftover remnants in your hair. So the skin of your hand can absorb toxins. So you don't even have to be rubbing your face after touching a dog or rubbing your eyes to get these little particles. It can go right through your hand. It's a route through which substances can enter the body, factors such as all of those factors. So yeah, rubbing something with your hand, you can transfer the medications that creature is taking. Pet hair contains traces of medications. If you look up a study that I will put in the description, I also have a video on it. There are birds that make their nests out of fur from cats and dogs, and the flea and tick medications that are in that fur killed the offspring of the birds. So do you want something that kills the offspring of birds to be constantly rubbed up onto your child's hands? Your child's hands that are also going to be used to feed themselves, feed other people. They're going to share their food with other people, including at the school. Who else do you think is going to be petting up on those dogs? Who else do you think is going to be petting up on old fluff nuts over here? Yeah, the staff, the teachers that hand out food, the staff that work in the lunchroom that hand out, apple slices and ham and cheese sandwiches to the kids. So the therapy dogs in the schools, those type of dogs are one of the top recipients of flea and tick medications and lots of other pharmaceuticals. The summary from a couple sources right here: dogs should receive regular flea and tick medications. Well, of course they're going to do that, especially for those therapy dogs, because if somebody gets a flea or tick on them, they're going to lose their tax shelter. They're going to lose all those donations. Yeah. So as long as they pump them full of, fluoxetine and Prozac and flea and tick medications, well, it's going to seem fine. The dog's going to be super relaxed, completely free of fleas and everything else, but it's going to be transferring all of those drugs and stuff right over to your kids. And again, therapy dogs in schools require vaccinations, rabies and other vaccines, health checkups, preventive medications. A good portion of this is being paid for by your taxes, paying for dogs in the school. Like it says here too, heartworms and parasites right here at the end. Yeah, parasitic medications for dogs are one of the top things that we consume in this country. And that's all getting transferred over to your kids when they pet up on dogs. Not just in school, but everywhere else. And the ingredients in anti-parasitic drugs, they often show up in rainwater and other places. And that's bad for the kids. So why would you put more on top of that by having them pet these dogs? And so the active ingredients commonly found in heartworm medications include ivermectin and these three other ones, milbemicin, oxime, and moxidectin. These ingredients help prevent heartworm disease by eliminating the larva. Yeah. Well, these are neurotransmitter disruptors. All of these medications are neurotransmitter disruptors. And guys, isn't it funny that ivermectin is commonly used for a flea medication? Yet during COVID-19, like no one was allowed to talk about ivermectin. Yet we were pumping ivermectin into our dogs that whole time. Well, let's look at some side effects then. So here is moxidectin. It's selectively binding to glutamate-gated chloride ion channels in parasites, leading to paralysis and death. In mammals, side effects include vomiting, salivation, neurological signs, tremors, ataxia, especially if overdosed or in certain breeds. So this is not good stuff, guys. Neurological signs. We're giving all these anti-parasitic medications to dogs. And dogs are the parasite. Wow. Okay. More common side effects. Vomiting, diarrhea, lethargy, ataxia. Ataxia is a fast heartbeat. Anorexia, more severe reactions like weakness. These are all related to the dangers of these medications, the way they disrupt the neurotransmitters. And you don't have to take my word for it. Pick an article right here, like this one. Just read it for yourself. Yeah. So interestingly enough, I'm kind of getting slightly off topic here, but a lot of these anti-parasitic medications, guess where they come from? China. And this little factoid will make more sense at the end of the video. So, with kids, there has been an increase in neurological issues. Gee, more dogs, more neurological issues? Dogs expose kids to neurologically disrupting parasitic medication. Are you guys able to do a little bit of math here and kind of see what I'm talking about? Especially epilepsy, developmental delays are they say they're more commonly diagnosed. But if you go and read in the studies, the percentage of people having epilepsy is on the rise, not just diagnosis. Yeah, and epilepsy comes from the neurological disruption. The increase in epilepsy cases may be attributed to several factors, including diagnosis, awareness. They say aging, however, epilepsy is becoming a problem with kids more. But you got stroke, you got brain injuries. There may be cases remained unexplained. Well, has anybody ever looked at what type of neurologically disrupting medications that person has in their house because of dogs? People will have 5 or 6 dogs inside of a small apartment. All of them have flea and tick medications. And all of those medications get pushed off into the environment of the owners, and then they have a stroke, then they have epilepsy, and then everybody stands around scratching their head. So, this problem is going to get worse. Flea and ticks are becoming resistant to commonly used medications, such as fipronil and permethrin. So, whatever medications that those dogs in those schools are taking right now to keep the fleas and the ticks and everything else off of them, the heartworms, that's going to have to increase. We're going to have to get more powerful medications. Those medications are going to shed off of the dog and have more power to affect the kids that are rubbing on those dogs all day. The global flea and tick product market for dogs is projected to grow significantly. So I thought I would share this statistic with everybody, but look at this expenditures here. 15.21 billion by 2033. So this isn't just like a little bit of exposure here and there to some flea meds. Everybody is running around rubbing up on dogs that are pumped full of these neurologically disrupting GABA, acetylcholine, dopamine. These medications severely disrupt neurotransmitters. That is exactly how they work. And so we're just loading ourselves up as humans with this stuff. And then wondering why we seem so stupid, why we have cognitive problems, why strokes are on the rise. We're literally delivering these anti-parasitic drugs to ourselves via dog ownership. And as I mentioned, almost all anti-parasitic drugs work by disrupting neurotransmitter function. And they say, well, it's in parasites. But it's for any creature that takes these. Birds, humans, dogs. Smaller breeds are more susceptible to doses. It's simply acting on your neurotransmitters. So, as a society, here's another little thing for everybody to consider. I brought up China earlier, right? Well, this is a picture of a kid playing with some toys that come from China. And it turns out the resin in these plastics right here caused skin irritation or rashes on the kids. So the resin in these little food toys right here leached out and caused problems for the kids. And these were pulled from the shelves immediately. Refunds were given. The toys were pulled from the shelves. Customers were encouraged to give all the toys back. So how come with dogs we don't do this? How come we sit here and let these kids rub up on these dogs that are full of flea and tick medications, coming out of their eyeballs, coming out of their jaw, coming out of their anus, and we're going to do this to our little kids? Let our kids rub up on dogs that are constantly shedding neurotransmitter disrupting chemicals into the environment, right onto the hands of these kids. Hands that are going to feed the children, hands that are going to be used later on to, when these kids work, at Subway or at the deli or at a restaurant, they're going to be making food for people, and all of the drugs that come off of their dog that they've been petting, it's going right into your mouth. So there we go. That's been a look at the dangers of stroking up on animals that are filled with neurotransmitter disruptive chemicals. When I see a picture like this one right here, I see nothing but indoctrination, child abuse, taxpayer-funded virtue signaling adults putting a dog up in front of these kids when they should put an apprentice or a book or a human that has a language-rich environment that they can bring to the kids. Not a doped up on doggy Prozac, aka fluoxetine, dog that's just going to sit there and slobber on them and give them fake hits of dopamine or whatever BS health benefits that they're going to link this to are short-lived and could be much, much better served by a proper human friend. See you guys later.